tarot cards are often the first step and basis for a seeker of metaphysical knowledge, like you, to discover your forever path. That could be astrology, numerology, healing arts, or any other spiritual interest you discover along the way. Elaine Ireland is not only a teacher of tarot, she is a mentor who supports you and will be there for you. Visit www.elaineIrelandtarotmaster.com now and discover how Elaine's mentoring, tarot card and psychic readings, tarot card classes, and more help you to grow into the true being you are meant to be. Welcome to Conversations with the Ancients, where you're about to discover a whole different world than the one that, up until now, you've believed you're familiar with. World-renowned metaphysicist, practicing psychic, and tarot teacher Elaine Ireland invites you on a journey where you'll hear voices from the past, interviews with some of the greatest metaphysicians you've never heard of, because in their time, they needed to move with stealth. You'll also meet today's spirit mediums, healers, and others who will show you a side of the paranormal you've never seen before. Be sure you visit our website at conversationswiththeancients.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, hear the words of metaphysicians who blazed the trail. You're not in jail, thanks to them.
I'm recording officially with the wonderful Saul Ravencraft. I love your name, Saul Ravencraft.
Thank you.
Wizard for hire and a wonderful mix of magic and mystic talent. That is fun. Smile, Saul.
It is fun. It is fun.
It is fun. We always have a good
time. Looking at all the food to make sure that we're recorded correctly. So
okay, folks, we're trying to preserve this because Saul and I have talked before, and the cloud gobbled something up and spit it out, and we don't know where it landed. So this is our second effort to bring Saul to you, to share his wisdom and his experience and his talent and his mischievous ways and fun
you
ways.
make me sound so much.
You are. You're big. I don't think you realize how big you are. And I love the fact that you have all those gorgeous books behind you and a sip of something fun as well.
Barbados rum.
See what I mean, public? He's full of mischief. He's full of mischief. So it's great. It's great to have you here. In all seriousness, we've jumped through some hoops in order to get the mechanics of this. And thank goodness Saul is also a computer geek compared to my absolute incompetence when it comes to computers. So thank goodness he's on both ends of the stick here, which is great.
You are learning every day.
I try. I do try. I do. And I will master this before it's all over with. But you know what will happen by then? Once you master something, then there are 10,000 more things to learn about the same thing. Somebody's been behind the scenes pulling up all kinds of stuff to learn over and over and over again. But it's all fun.
Well, but they're generally built upon the old things.
Yes.
And so if you know the old things, it gives you a good foundation to take on what's new. What's troubling is those that don't know anything about the way things used to work. And so they only know that you push a button.
That's me.
Right? And they don't know how it used to work. Right? They never had to go do a channel knob. Right? So
change the ears with aluminum foil.
Yeah. Right? They just have this one view of things. But I've had several times, and I know you have too, where my experience at old school stuff and old ways of understanding, old ways of researching, old ways of putting stuff together come in handy when the new supposed fail-safe way or foolproof way doesn't work.
You know, I tell people all the time, all of this stuff is fabulous until it's not.
Right.
Which we've had that experience. How long have you been doing metaphysical work? You were a magician at first, right? Playing with disbelief and
so let's kind of take that on a couple of tracks. First,
Okay.
I was always kind of a weird kid. I loved the monster movies and the strange things I would watch In Search of, narrated by Leonard Nimoy on Saturdays. I would be interested in and just all of the spookiness and the fantasy and the otherness. I watched the Twilight Zone. I watched all those kinds of fantastic. I mean, they were reruns for me,
Hmm.
but I watched all those fantastic shows that showed me lots of different ways the world could be, and I loved reading fiction, and I loved all of that stuff. And so when I was in, I guess, late elementary school, early middle school, I learned about stage magic. Uh, and I enjoyed theater. I enjoyed all of the things that were with that. But I was also a bit of a storyteller at heart. And I didn't get to hang around with other magicians. I didn't know any other magicians. I didn't know about magic clubs and that kind of thing that are available. And so I sort of grew my own perspective on all of that. And I enjoyed the ideas of the supernatural, but I was raised in a household that, it was a Christian household, but it was a practical Christian household, right? And so religion was not particularly supernatural. It was just that thing that you did. And there was fellowship and was prayer, but prayer was, you know, not necessarily a working the way that we might think of it. And so I was pretty skeptical. And then I started digging deeper into the supernatural, not so much out of a genuine desire, but really to prove it wasn't true. I was sort of culturally appropriating magical beliefs into the writing that I wanted to do because I figured if I tapped into the culture, the lore of all those ridiculous superstitious people, that I would somehow touch a core, and my fiction would be more believable, acceptable to them, and get past their skepticism. And then as I was digging into that stuff, I kept coming across things that make me go, "Huh, that sort of makes sense." Right? And then I started to realize that I was buying into this stuff. Well, that's a problem. So I was going to apply science. I was going to take a few things and I was going to experiment with them and demonstrate that all of this was ridiculous as I had already known. And so I began with numerology and because numbers, right?
Sure.
And
They're absolute. They're absolute.
right.
Right.
Not ambiguity there. And I immediately came across things that spoke to me. And I immediately began to make changes based on what I saw reflected in those numbers and how the use of things like my name and my email address and that sort of thing projected something that I didn't want to. And I was doing that at the time to be more self-important. And I reverted back to things that were more from my youth. And then I went, oh no, no, wait a minute, look at you. And so I kept moving across the board with things. Now I had worked with things like tarot, but at that point I believed in all of those things as just being cold reading. You've heard that explanation before,
Yeah.
haven't you?
Yeah.
And there is a sort of a logic to it, but I still have colleagues that are in the stage magic realm and they hear about me doing my cold readings and I try to explain to them that that's not really that's not what's happening. And they're like, oh yeah, sure, sure. Uh-huh. Because they just can't see it any other way. And it has been very strange for me to go down the rabbit hole with all of this and have people recognize it in me. I remember one time I went to meet a friend who wanted to discuss something, and we met at the Dog and Duck, a local pub, good British style pub. And it happened
Is
to
it
be
still
pagans.
is it still open or did
It
it
is
close?
still open somewhere. They moved, and I've not
Okay.
been to the new location. My understanding is the new location is kind of a strip mall kind of a thing, which is nothing like its old
Mhm.
spirit, which was very much like that of a true British pub. But that night, when I met my friend, it happened to be Pagan's Night Out, which is a thing. And I recognized several people that were there for that. And they looked at me, they went, and I'm like, nah. And they're like, you sure? Yeah. And I had a number of things happen where strangers would just open to me about weird stuff because apparently I was just giving off this kind of vibe. And I eventually had someone who is a hereditary traditional practitioner sit down with me and say, you are doing things, and you should probably start doing them on purpose before something bad happens. And I went, oh no, that's ridiculous. And she started ticking off areas where it was clear that my will was exerting influence. And I had to agree with her because they were just these kind of weird little twists going on. And and I had a conversation with someone. It was out around a campfire at Sherwood after hours, and I ended up talking to this guy, and we somehow the topic got on to witchy themes, and the guy who was elder to me said, "Well, you are clearly a powerful wizard," and I'm going, "Am I
I love it.
really?" And over time, I had to embrace it. And of course, that changed everything because within that became my understanding that mythology, that religions are wrapped around, and the stagecraft of magic was all metaphor for bigger ideas, for bigger things, for bigger connections. And I couldn't treat it like bullshit anymore. And I still enjoy the theatricality. I still enjoy using special effects in presentations to kind of shortcut people into an experience. I mean, shaman do that. That's part of a shamanic practice is knowledge of certain things that will get you into the right state for you to have an experience. And some of those are not exactly what they appear, right? There are things you can go back and look at that some people would call magic tricks that are incorporated into leading someone in a certain direction. But I don't see them that way anymore. I used to see that with a lot of disgust, but now I understand. I mean, it's like the tarot is these symbols, these metaphors that help clarify for people. You don't need tarot to do a reading,
No.
but when people see those pictures, they see those symbols, they see that graphic novel come to life for them with what you're sharing, it takes on an additional power for them. It takes on a clarity for them that would be harder otherwise. And so I it's interesting because I've gotten way too woo for some of my friends and they won't play with me anymore,
Oh.
right? But I also retain certain levels of I won't call it skepticism exactly, but I do bring my brain, right? And
I like that, bringing your
sometimes,
brain. I like
yeah,
that.
sometimes there are things that we experience that we can't exactly look at face value, and we have to be able to keep our feet on the ground so that we can do things like pay bills and operate Zoom meetings and, and things
Which
that
was a
we
little bit of a challenge today, folks.
and there's stuff that we got to do to stay in this. And you've met people who have let go of all pragmatism
Yeah.
and their feet don't touch the ground. They are in the clouds and they are connecting the dots in very unusual ways and ways that I can't completely connect with myself. And
Yet.
on one level, it's a beautiful thing, right? But I find that people that hit that state need a handler, right? Because they can't do the everyday. They're inundated by spirit with no barriers. They are they become kind of fey in that. And that's terrific to have that experience. There's a part, I mean, I'll tell you, lady, if the door to that fantasy world opened up next to me, I would just walk off the camera and you would probably never see me again because I this timeline sucks.
I hate to remind you, but you signed on for this adventure.
you know and so to me I think it's important, because of people in my world that I care about, because of things that I do that matter to me. I need to make sure that my feet uh, touch the ground when necessary and that I release when appropriate. And that that requires a certain amount of inspection and retrospection and looking at things through a not just the purely fantastic lens. And you've also dealt with situations where someone comes to you and they've got a thing, but there's also a kind of practical aspect to what they're telling you that might need to involve a doctor or something,
Yeah.
or law enforcement or something.
Therapy.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And while I embrace the magical right now, and it's definitely incorporated in my life, I think it's deeply important that we allow ourselves to still live in the world. Otherwise, what good are we doing?
It's true.
How can you help someone that is trying to live in the world if you won't?
Did you realize all of this when you first started?
Oh, it's all been evolution.
Okay. Because I
And
want people to realize that sometimes we already know it, but we have to prove it. And Saul has reminded me that that's what he did. He went down a rabbit hole and he was trying to disprove and ended up proving in a positive way, but yet leaving the door open, the rabbit hole door open, for possibilities that things weren't what he expected to find. And that is an evolution within itself. But sometimes we don't realize the evolution is going on when we're in the middle of it.
well, and the hell of it is because of my circumstances, you know, if you are involved with metaphysical fairs, you meet a lot of different kinds of people coming from a lot of different kinds of perspectives
True.
who have made choices about what it is they feel they need to project, if that makes sense to you.
Yes.
And so
Responsibilities.
I will, but I mean, some people it's their brand, right? I will try not to use the word shtick, but some of them have got a stick.
Hmm.
right? And I remember that I would very often have people that it hadn't happened for a while, so I guess I've started to build my armor correctly. But people would walk up and go, "Well, I've seen the spirits ever since I was a little child. I always played with the invisible children, and the spirits are all, and there's one behind you now, and what about you?" And I would say, "Well, I got involved in all this to prove it wasn't true," and went way down the rabbit hole. And they didn't really like that answer.
I keep hearing my fire thing go off. Did you just hear it chirp? So
I
I
hear it
don't mean,
chirping.
yeah. So I'm going to be, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm going to shut the door. Hang on.
All right, no problem.
Okay. Obviously, I did not get the battery in good enough,
That's all
but
right.
we don't need to hear it chirp for the whole time
Yeah.
that we're on. Okay.
So I was
Getting
saying
down
that the hell of it is that, I mean, I love hearing these stories about how the universe responded to them from when they were very young. I mean, that's amazing. That's totally amazing. But I don't know whether that was possible for me or not. I don't know whether I had connection, but I was raised shielded. And so I ignored whatever it was that I might have done or might have connected with because I was brought up in an environment where these ideas were fun but not to be taken seriously. They were comic book level, right? So I could watch things about psychics and witches and all of that sort of thing and enjoy that, but that sort of thing didn't actually exist. That stuff couldn't really happen. So for me, the evolution has been an opening, a way of breaking down the barriers, of finding out how to connect, and that has just gotten better and better over time. Still plenty of room for growth, though, where I
every
find that some of these other people started very open and have hopefully learned how to add some discipline around it, because I think that's important. You can't be doing this 24/7. I remember one person I was talking to that talked about how the way the spirits interacted with her, and she said, sometimes I'm standing at line at the grocery store, and they'll tell me I have to tell the person in front of me something. I said, "No, you don't. No, that makes you weird and scary."
and
Because they're,
unethical in our world.
well, I mean, within certain disciplines, right? But if
Yeah.
you're undisciplined, then you don't, the spirits would wake her up. And I'm like, "No, no, you tell them that unless it's an emergency, you have office hours, right? You can work with me during these times, but otherwise leave me alone. I'm eating dinner," right? And she
Right.
didn't she didn't see that as possible. She was cursed. And so I feel like I do have an advantage over some people, and that for me, I've been experiencing an opening, which I've done on purpose. And I think there are a lot of people that don't have connection with someone with, say, your experience, that don't understand that they have choices and they have techniques and they have ways to put boundaries about what they're doing and to do it on purpose. Because it is true. If you don't do this stuff on purpose, someone is going to get hurt.
That's true. I've seen people when they were just opening up, so to speak, and they know they don't have any choice. They've accepted the fact that their journey has changed, and now they're going to do this, whatever this is at that moment. And they end up with their guides or whoever waking them up at 3 o'clock in the morning, sending them into another office, and they sit there and meditate or whatever for 4 or 5 hours, and then they come back with a horrible headache, and then they're expected to live their life.
Right.
but and they can't go to sleep. If they try to get up, they feel like they've got a brick in their butt, so to speak, and they cannot get up, and they don't
Right.
know how to tell their guides stop, or whoever is doing this. But I also had to remind one person, you signed up for this journey, but you do have choices. And they know you have choices and they know you don't know. So they're going to
Right.
take advantage. But you're on a journey to be of service. So where do you stop? Where do you say slow down? How? And of course she felt guilty because she said, "Okay, I opened myself up and now I'm complaining." You know, I said, "But
Right.
nobody negotiated with you about how you were going to grow. You just opened
Right.
the door and they said, "Okay, come on. We'll show you how to do this." And I think sometimes our mentors from the other side forget we're human and we have to sleep. We have to eat.
Well, but to be fair, often when we open ourselves up unconditionally.
Yeah.
We say, I want to do all of this. Give it all to me.
Hurry up.
And we try to pretend like we're not human. That we'll take it all on. One of the things that comes up a lot when I'm working with individuals is the use of their power, where they're putting their power, what they're doing with their power, um, where they're feeding the vampires. And
Ooh, ooh, good statement.
when people are talking about what they want to do and they feel like they have no choices, I say, well, I do have a magical phrase that I can give you that will help you with this if you'll recite it when you have need. Will you accept this from me?
Yes, sir.
Repeat after me.
Okay.
No.
No. Yeah.
Say it
I
again.
knew that was I knew that was coming.
Say it like you
No.
mean it.
No, go away. Yeah.
Right? And we
So,
enjoy the thrill of saying no.
but yet so many people are afraid that if they say no one time, then it will all stop
Right.
and they can't ever get it back.
Well, that's because someone's selling something.
You're right. Yeah. How badly do you want to do this work? How badly do you want to grow? Public, I have to remind you that part of the reason for this podcast is to share with you what we as humans go through in order to do and the balance we must find in three, probably three different directions to maintain being a human and function as a human, work as a metaphysician, and perhaps as a business person. Because our work, like he implied a while ago, is a business within itself if we're going to do it in order to maintain the human responsibilities. Is that confusing? If we're going to do this full time, that means we have to charge for it. One of the things that used to aggravate the crap out of me is, shouldn't you be giving this away? Boy, little do people realize how much of this we give away. We can
Right.
pick and choose who we can do our work for freely, but if this is an income for us, or and we're on our own, let's say raising children, we don't have a partner, then we have to charge something. I know some people in their younger days will barter. They'll say, now it would be considered a gift card or whatever, but a chicken, eggs. There used to be a guy in East Austin that if you couldn't afford cash, he didn't care if you brought two eggs. He was fine. He said, I can eat those eggs.
Right.
Right. But people don't realize that what we as humans do to do the work with and for them.
Right.
And that can be a weird balance for
One of the
us.
ways that I have addressed that for myself is I've recognized that some of what I'm given to do is more aligned with, say, a ministry than a vocation.
Yeah.
And occasionally I will connect with someone that needs something way beyond what the sign says right now. Right? They need
Mhm.
the real deal, and we gotta just do it. And there's not a way to charge for that exactly. Sometimes I just got to do what needs doing and trust that it all gets paid forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
And once I started to realize that every once in a while something was going to happen where I just needed to be the wizard and get it done because that's what I'm for.
Explain what you mean by being the wizard, because I want people to walk away with that true meaning.
Hmm. Well, it's interesting. So when I started exploring magic, with a K, magic,
Yeah.
right? Um, and connecting with the idea that we could influence our circumstances through some really old ideas and started to take that on, I struggled with how to define myself. Because I'd explored Wicca, lovely religion,
Mm-hmm.
not what I connect with.
Mm-hmm.
I explored all other kinds of approaches to things that had magical aspects within them. And Catholicism has magical aspects within it, in ways that people
Yes.
don't know. A lot of people have no idea that every sanctuary, every cathedral they've ever walked into has at least one magic circle.
Mm-hmm.
The candles are in the cardinal points. The altar is in the traditional location. The things on the altar, even though you may not see all of them as part of the ceremony, but they're there. There's a lot of stuff that overlaps in Catholicism, and I have no problem with the idea of someone consider themselves a sort of Christo pagan, provided they're giving properly to both sides of it because it's there. But just be careful who you tell, because they don't necessarily know how to deal with it. But ultimately, what I discovered for myself, and I was sort of falling into this realm of basic thaumaturgy, which is the practical working of magic, the understanding that the energies exist and that there are tools and there are rituals that we can use to shape these energies into what it is that we want to manifest. And we're not necessarily talking with any particular pantheon or anything like that. We're working with the universe a little more directly. And uh, I love all the gods and goddesses and entities that are represented, but I don't serve them exactly. I I learn from them, I respect them, but I've not given myself over to any of them. I also relate to the concept of chaos magic, which is very much about magic being the direction of will. Aleister Crowley was someone who advocated that perspective of magic, and it fits very well with basic thaumaturgy. And the interesting thing about chaos magic is because it recognizes whatever you're doing as metaphor to help drive the vibration and drive the energy, that a lot of things are inclusive. And so you can look at angels, you can look at Dungeons and Dragons, right? You can anything that helps define the idea for you in a way that helps you hit that vibration is is game. And so chaos magic can get a little weird, But it's fascinating. I've found that there's a book series that I mentioned in my recommended reading. It's all the Dresden Files books by Jim Butcher. And they're fantasy, they're fiction. I don't have any indication that Jim Butcher did an especially deep dive into lore and that maybe he does ritual magic on the weekend. But a lot of the stuff that he describes just feels so right about the ethics of magic, about the other worlds surrounding ours and the connection with those beings. A lot of it just resonates as very, very palpable. And I've just restarted the series. I reread the whole thing periodically. I think it's like 15 books now, and I just reimmerse myself in that. And so to me, when people started asking me what I was, which didn't feel right, a lot of things didn't feel right. And it was funny, mostly because of Harry Potter. We got this shortcut that if I just said I was a wizard, a lot of people would either go, oh, okay, or they would go, well, what do you mean by that? And then we would go deeper, as deep as they were willing to go into these ideas. Some people can't go very deep, and some people
Here?
want to go very deep. Well, it depends. It depends. I mean, this is something that I also encounter, that fear. We got a lot of culture that tells us to be afraid of these ideas, to be afraid of the stories of other gods and goddesses, to be afraid of the idea that you might be able to work something through your will without asking for permission.
Ah,
Right?
okay.
What's a
Right.
prayer? A prayer is a petition, it's a request. A lot of times when you hear people talk about prayer, now I don't believe this, but the way it's presented, right? I think prayer is a form of working magic, honestly. But but often the way people will present their prayers is, please make this happen if it is your will, if I am worthy, if it's okay, right? I don't want to overstep my bounds. If you need Susie to die for your good reasons, you go. Right? And this is one of the things that I think changes. So religion that is based around these ideas has, I think, a very appropriate understanding. I will serve my God, and I will give over my sins and my failures and my troubles, and these will be taken on, and I will be forgiven and not have to bear those burdens. And in exchange for that, I promise to love unconditionally, to care for the poor, to help the sick, to visit the imprisoned, and all of that stuff that some people forget about. Right? That's the deal. When you move into some other approaches, specifically the ones that tend to work around magic, you don't have that. You have to own your shit. If you
Take
do something,
responsibility.
yeah, if you do
Yeah.
something, there's no greater being that is promised to fix that for you. You have to address it. You have to undo it, or make amends, or do something, or pay it forward if it's something that can't be taken back, right? But you don't just get to go, I'm forgiven. No, you gotta work through that stuff. And that's a little scary. And I find a lot of people that come new into the craft, they've gotten a lot of indoctrination that says, well, you make these deals, you got to wiggle out of them, right? If you put your will out there, you got to, you make that deal, don't you pay, right? It's a trick. But and so they come into it with trepidation. They feel drawn in this direction. They feel drawn to use their power in the way that makes sense to them. But they know that something's coming for them. That if they do it wrong, something's going to eat them. That if they transgress, then they're going to hell. That's why I give out get out of hell free cards. Because we gotta understand that we have some control over that path. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy, but people are just so afraid to use their own power because they've been told, no, 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 not you, dear. You don't use your power. I'll use that power. Right? I'm the priest. I'm the one with the connections. You do
Direct
that.
connection.
Yeah, you do that through me. And it's funny when you look at the actual material, that's not what you're told. I mean, there's some things that kind of connect with that, but but not not really that way. And so I find a lot of people when they start to tap into things, they're really nervous about getting it wrong. And they enter into doing things with a lot of trepidation, and that makes them vulnerable to people that go, I know, you let me lead you and I will make you powerful.
My way or no way.
Take off your clothes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
My way or no way.
Yeah, and we should be skeptical of those people, right? Bring your brain. But also we have to have an appreciation that there's more buffers built into things. And I love horror movies about witches gone crazy, right? They are so much fun, right? They are wacky, crazy stuff. And they have nothing to do with someone learning spellcraft.
I like that term, spellcraft. How do you know you can work with someone and trust what they're teaching you when you work with someone who is teaching you that sort of thing?
So I have not had a lot of personal experience with that. I never really had a mentor on this kind of thing. I went to the books and experimented and explored, and I had colleagues that would interact with me, and we would have wonderful conversations about things that I learned from. But what was weird was after a while on the path as kind of a solitary explorer, I had people respond to me as though I was already supposed to know what I was doing. So somehow I was vibrating in that way, and I didn't have anyone go, "Oh, I will mold you and I will teach you." Maybe I just wasn't pretty enough. But
Or maybe you were smart enough to not mess with those people.
well, they just didn't reach out in that way to me. And so, but I have had a few people that want to talk with me. There's someone that I'm talking to right now that wants to create a sort of a metaphysical community that has a social aspect, but also a working aspect. And we're trying to figure out what that means. And
Do you mean a community where people can come and live?
no, no,
No. Okay.
but just sort of a gathering point.
Okay.
Not a coven exactly, but doing some of the kinds of things that people find in a coven, like being able to work together as a group on things, but also respecting the but in our case, respecting the autonomy and the separateness of everybody's paths. because a lot of these people are people who will have worked out their own ways. They've been on their own path. They're not looking for someone to fix them, but they are looking for someone to be with, because they can't talk about this stuff at happy hour with their work colleagues. They can't always discuss it with their spouses or family, right? Because that's just not their journey. And so there's a personal spiritual journey going on that one is devoted to, but there's another journey that was started earlier. And it's, in my case, it's not fair to toss out what was there before just because I've gone through some transformation.
Years ago, and I mean years ago, I had an open house twice a month
Nice.
for metaphysics, doing maybe what you're talking about, but it wasn't just only you can come. It was anybody that was searching for backup assistance, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Out of that came some core people who ended up working with police department and doing other things. Some of them were just opening the book, and some
Right.
had been readers or healers for years and years and years. And something was changing in their world where they needed a little bit of like-minded communication, therapy sessions, if you
Right.
want to call it that. But they were always fun. I had that for about 5 years, I guess, and then I moved, so it stopped, and I've never started it again.
Sure.
But all I did was just kind of let it out there, and it ended up being everything from new beginners to, like I said, people that have been around a while. But of course, eventually it became pretty much the same group with an occasional newcomer, because I think some of the newcomers were overwhelmed rather than welcomed the
Right.
mentorship that was available.
Right.
And that it was a community. And I've kept some, we lost some during COVID, but some have moved out of state, some have
Right.
aged out, so to speak.
Yeah.
But now there's probably 5 or 6 that I could call and say, "You wanna get that started again?" And maybe they would and maybe they wouldn't, but or they don't need it anymore, whatever. But that's what it sounds like, so go for it.
Well, the reason
Get
I mention it is because the idea that someone would reach out to me to help develop this kind of idea means that in some way they're looking to me for mentorship.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I have to make some choices and develop some understandings as to what that means from my perspective of trying to exert some leadership. And one of the core ideas that I discuss with them right from the beginning is I don't know everything. I'm still
Too true.
figuring this stuff out, right? And so I'll always talk about things from my own perspective, but that doesn't necessarily mean that mine is the only perspective or the most correct perspective. And so something that I think is very important in developing these relationships is how do we create an environment where we get to pass the stick around, and that if tonight is something that you're trying to lead, that one, anyone that doesn't feel comfortable with participating in that for whatever reason, no harm, no foul, no judgment.
Yeah. Right.
But that everyone else will then take on a supportive role and try to do what it is that you're trying to do, even if I would do it differently. That I'm
Yes.
going to hold the candle and chant the words you told me to chant, and I'm not going to proofread, because that's not what we're doing. That we are able to trade off leadership to help each other accomplish goals.
One of the things that was the hardest thing for some people that early on to that were new to the process, they they didn't think they knew enough to
Right.
add a voice.
Right.
And I didn't I kept telling everybody we're all leaders here. You can, as a younger person coming into this, or younger to the process, you can remind us of what we didn't pick up along the way.
Maybe a
And
better phrase is that you're all students here.
absolutely, absolutely. And that, once some of the newer ones in the process got that, they felt more comfortable with saying what they are, asking a question that they thought everybody else would think was really stupid. There
Right.
are no silly questions. There are no, all questions have a path to follow. And some of them were really surprised at the variety of answers that they would get. They thought they would get one answer from all of the experienced people. Well,
Right.
that wasn't true. So I'm excited about you getting that going. That sounds wonderful. The community needs it.
But that all
Go for it.
highlights this idea that a person's metaphysical path is individual.
Yeah.
And that is so important that even within the confines of a well-established protocol like Wicca or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
although they get scattered as much as Christian churches do, that they're that even within that, your journey is your own journey. Your discoveries and understandings and best practices are your own, and that's the way it's supposed to be. The universe has this fascinating way of being able to deal with all the individual atoms, and everything kind of ends up in its own place, even though the universe seems to like chaos quite a bit.
Huh. Yeah.
And that chaos is part of the way it works. And so why would it be any more orderly for us?
Orderly. Orderly.
But we
You
think we
know,
think things are supposed to be orderly.
and yet we all know people that love chaos. We all love people that stir up trouble, and they'll tell you, I'm not stirring up any, I just ask a question. But
Right?
they ask a question that they knew, or made a comment that they knew would give a big bang.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are seeing a lot of that around our world right now, which is on many levels, which is sad.
Well, and I think it creates some opportunity, this sort of chaos and such. I was dealing with a situation the other day where I had a plan and I had a procedure, and it got in someone's way, and so they just did what they needed to do. And it involved some of my equipment, some of that kind of thing. And so I was not real thrilled with that. And yet out of that, I also recognized, oh, wait a minute. When dealing with this person, I just need to do what I need to do, right? I don't need to help them understand or gain their permission or anything like that. I just need to do what I need to do because that's the way it is in this environment. And that goes against my sensibilities a little bit. I like for people to understand what's going on and all of that. But if I'm the only one playing that game, if I'm the only one working by the rules and everyone else is free form, then I'm just not going to get anything done.
Blocks get put up.
Right. And I think some of what we're dealing with right now is that case. We have people that are revealing their perspective on how they think the world is supposed to work. They believe that if they are the most powerful, then they should just automatically get what they want. And yet, we try to shield them from our power.
Interesting balance.
Right? They just told us how they view the world. They just severely underestimated you. And we let them. And now I think there's a lot of opportunity to do things, to put forward things, because everyone is just so distracted and so overconfident right now from certain perspectives that if we put our power into motion, there's a lot that can be done because they're not listening, they're not paying attention. They believe themselves to be above it all.
A couple of months ago, I had an unpleasant personal situation,
Mm,
and I allowed someone to be very much in my face, taking advantage. And I that particular day, thank goodness, I just didn't have the energy to fight.
mm,
I just
mm-hmm.
didn't. I was very, very tired. 10 years ago, that would have been different because I was tired and didn't want to mess with such darkness. I probably would have bitten the head off. But
Right.
instead, I just was quiet and I let this person just continue to blame me for something I wasn't even involved in, but
Right.
found out later why. But that particular day, knowing that, and I mean knowing that that person believed what they actually believed, every word they said.
Mm-hmm.
And I let them go and go and go and go. And there was a witness there. And I finished packing up my stuff. And the person got really quiet, like, aren't you going to say anything? And I looked up and I said very quietly, I know that karma has your address. And I turned around and walked off.
Nice.
And it just came out. I mean, I
Right.
wasn't standing there trying to figure out my reaction. It just
Sure.
came out. And I walked out very quietly, very calmly, and that person did not follow. The witness followed me and said, "What are you doing?" I was so tired I didn't even I said, "What do you mean what am I doing?" And she said, "Why did you do that?" And I said, "Because I don't have the energy to do anything more." And it shut that person up, didn't it?
Yeah.
I really think sometimes that, to me, looking back on it, that was really very cruel of me to do that, to say it that way. Am I sorry that I ended the conversation that way? No, because I know that my guide said it, and when I heard it, it was at least 3 or 4 octaves lower than
All right.
my voice, but when I
Right.
said it or it came out, I thought, "I really am tired." That raspy kinda sound you get when you're just so tired?
Yeah.
But I thought, "Should I call and apologize?" And something said, "Absolutely not.
No.
Let them think about it." Now, since then, I hate gossip, but I found out that person knows that they were wrong,
Right.
but I haven't heard from them. And I don't anticipate ever hearing from them. But what a lesson for both of us.
Sure.
But I don't know whether that person will ever get the lesson because of their pride.
But it's not yours to give.
No, It's not. I was
Yeah.
involved in
So
a
find
lesson.
it or
That's all
not.
I can say. That's all I can. I was involved in a lesson to be learned. That's
Yeah.
it. And I can say thank you, and I'm done with it. And I I'm done with it. But it was such an unusual situation. I'm going, where did this come from? That was my first, where did this come from?
Yeah.
It was just so strange.
Yeah.
Just one of those things. But that's a level of learning that you're talking about, and how we learn
Right.
and how we learn. And sometimes when you're in the thick of it, like that, when it's all been right in your face, you know, what the?
Well, and right now, I think that we really need to focus more on bringing our own energy closer to us. We need to focus on not feeding the vampires. We need
Yeah.
to be putting our energy toward our own manifestations and our own sacred space, and not trying to uphold the world on our shoulders.
You just said something very important, our own sacred space. Now, public, that doesn't necessarily mean your churches, your temples, and so forth. It means where you live, it means where you
Mhm.
stay. If you're, I don't care. I don't care if you're living in a tent. It's your space, and making it safe for you, your loved ones, your guest, if you have a guest. Obviously, a guest is someone you care about, but I can't agree with you more. Making it your sacred space, and being very aware of what is being thrown at you, even though you may think, as I do sometimes, I'm just one person. What can I possibly do to change this? The change comes at home. Everything starts where you sleep, where you eat, your community. And if a restaurant is in your community, that's another. What you bring into that business is should be calmness and peace, not crap,
But
so to
you're not
speak.
alone. You're never alone. You have a foundation of many, many, many ancestors, some of whom are genuine badasses that are always with you and help to hold you up, even though they may not make themselves well known because they know this is your life. Their energy is there. They're the entities that are drawn to you and surround you, like guides and angels or whatever you call those beings that are attracted to your energy and help fill up that space and all of these combine to help surround your space, help surround you. Uh, it's it's kind of astonishing, actually. Just ancestor energy alone is astonishing.
I agree. I agree. Having had some experience with ancestral energy, it always surprises me. I haven't had hundreds of events, but scattered over my life, maybe 6 or 7 that are major, that I considered major, but always surprised me,
Right,
always threw me off guard. And I'm
right.
very thankful for those surprises, very
Mm-hmm.
thankful, and for the support. You talk about going down rabbit holes. In fact, that's part of the title, part of your title. From the first time we've talked, of course, I'm looking at notes and stuff that I took from the first time, but your energy, what you've done, how you've grown, is obvious. It's obvious to me because I knew you a while back when you were beginning this journey. I don't know how far you were into it, but I would have considered it, you were still very open to a number of paths. And I attended one of your performances, which they were performances, your
Mm-hmm.
magic, your stage magic, which Folks, if you ever get a chance, he's very good at what he does, and I'm sure he's even better now than he was then. You're very good and fun. And it's I'm looking at my notes and going, most of these notes don't uh, aren't valid today. There are some things that are would be fun. Um, the House of Curiosities, are you still involved with that?
So, Curia Arcanum's House of Curiosities, run by my friend Francis Houston Blakely Sushamel III,
That's a
who I
name.
think of as the Willy Wonka of the occult.
I love it.
He's fascinating, and he'll talk to you about anything and everything. And his enthusiasm and his energy is just tangible. Um, but still a seeker, still interested in helping people figure stuff out. So I would be there as a reader, and then my schedule got a little funky, and their schedule got a little funky, and I haven't read there for a little while. But we may revive that at some point. It's definitely a goal. Uh,
Where is this?
so it's on South Congress
Okay.
between Stastny and William Cannon.
That's
Uh,
Austin, Texas, folks, in case you don't know where that
yeah,
is.
and it's set of townhouses, and when they're open, you will see a big statue of Anubis out front.
Ah,
So
okay.
that's kind of easy to find. And they have taxidermy and books, uh, incense and essential oils and pendulums and candles and cards and tchotchkes and games
Fun
and
stuff.
passion, and it's just a fun place. If the name appeals to you, you should go. If it
It
just made you
does.
curious, then you gotta go
Yeah.
and check them out because they're just lovely people.
Um, and the Vault of Horror.
Ravencraft's Vault of Horror happens the second Monday of the month at Mr. Tramp's, which actually is right next door to the Target where the tragic shooting occurred on Monday.
Oh,
I sometimes park in the spots that were blocked off by police tape with all of that because that was the night that we had our event. We showed a film that night, and we weren't impeded by it, but we definitely observed what had happened so near our space there. Um, but we do horror movies, all different kinds, and I like to introduce people to things that maybe they haven't seen before. Um,
how
the
far back do you go? Back to the Bela Lugosi's black and whites, and how far back
well,
do you
so
go?
you first said that. My first thought was, well, 2017 was when we started, and strangely, the very first film we showed was a Bela Lugosi film called White Zombie.
Yes.
Um, but we bounce around because there's good stuff from all over the place,
Oh yeah.
and the one we watched on Monday was called In the Mouth of Madness. John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness.
Don't have
It's
a clue.
got Sam Neill, and it's got some. It's all based on a lot of love H.P. Lovecraft ideas,
Okay.
and Sam Neill plays an insurance investigator who has been sent out to find an author named Sutter Kane who has disappeared. And he writes scary books. And some people are deeply affected by his books. And there's a thought that maybe this latest one might drive people a little mad. And it's fun. John Carpenter, I find very reliable.
I
I
like John
always enjoy
Carpenter.
his films. Yeah, just
Yeah,
good
I like John
stuff.
Carpenter. I have
Uh,
to ask, when are
yes.
you going to write a book? You're a
You know,
natural writer. You realize that, don't you?
I have a lot of people that ask me about that, and I agree that it would be fun and interesting to write something like that. The challenge for me is, from my perspective as a seeker, it is difficult for me to assemble the ideas that I must inflict upon the world.
Do it anyway.
I don't know what questions to answer.
If
I don't know what would be useful to anyone.
I have a title for you,
Yes?
but for now, because
But
time,
with two T's. Holding on to your butt with both hands.
no, no, but for now, what is now?
Yeah,
When is now? Time is every second, millisecond is constantly changing. So, whatever your story could be, you have an open end. Can you go back? Pardon the pun. Can you go forward? Time is always marching forward, but somewhere in there, we feel that time stops, speeds up, slows down. So, what's happening in those seconds from a metaphysical point of view? There's one character that could be 1,000 characters because they're in different time frames, because they're
well,
in
that's
different moments, because they're in different nows. And if one now changes, how does that make the now of tomorrow change? It could be very metaphysical.
all right.
And
I
folks,
like
if I
that.
see this in somebody else's handwriting, I will say, this is where I am. Anyway, this is, but for now, I've had that title for years. I wrote it in my journal years ago. But for now,
Well, I'll give that some deep consideration. And I guess one of the things that's interesting about my journey as it relates to that kind of sharing is every time I've encountered someone and we've talked about their journey and what they're trying to accomplish and what I might have to offer to let them see things the way they need to see them. It's it feels like it's never the same thing twice
that's part
because
of the thing.
everyone's journey is different and everyone's placing things in different. And I'm different.
Hmm.
I'm different all the time because the challenges and the experiences and the environment and my self understanding and self discovery is constantly moving and
Okay,
changing.
public, please hear that, because so many of you out there listening to these podcasts, that's one of the things I want you to know. Saul and I have talked about the word journey, and he and I, being metaphysicians, we use that word a lot, not only for ourselves, but for our clients, even other metaphysicians. The word journey is major in our realizations and our conversations. So, what he just said, as a listener, please hear it. Journeys are different.
And
Journeys are
individual.
different. Yeah,
I
very
love the
individual.
way it was put in the Four Agreements.
I
And
like,
his forward, he talks, and this is an old Toltec concept that we are all dreaming our own dream.
ooh, I like that. I'd forgotten that.
And your dream is not the same as my dream, even though our dreams somehow overlap a little bit. Uh,
Yes.
but our even when we are side by side, our dreams are different, and we don't experience the same things in the same ways.
If you don't want to sit down and write it, just talking into some of the wonderful software, although I'm resistant putting anything like that in a data form, private recorders or whatever. I'm sorry, I'm very suspicious of. I'm, I've had a book stolen from me. I've had conversations stolen from me. I've had
Right.
classes stolen. I mean, it's just I'm very reluctant to put on the computer anything that I intend to use in a later time. I don't journal on a computer. I'm old fashioned. But
Nothing wrong with that.
you you specifically have a little bit of the reader coming out of me here without your permission. You have so much. You talk about going down a rabbit hole. You yourself are a rabbit hole as a mentor and a teacher and what I would consider an expressionist rather than a performer. Yes, you can have your fun
that's
and
that's what
do
I've
your
become.
performing.
Yeah.
Right. You're an expressionist on many, many levels. And
Well, and
I mean,
to that point, you were talking about performance, my performance earlier, and something that was never there before my little tumble here was I talked about the metaphor, but there's gray that goes on in my presentations.
okay.
In the olden days, my performance was about controlling the situations, defining the moments, making the moments happen. Uh, Even when someone was participating with me, I would create conditions that would manipulate the right person to not really have any choice but to go in the directions I wanted the scene to go. And then I would pick the right person.
But
I
you're a
would
magician. That was your responsibility as
that
a
was
performer.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and that was my understanding. Now, I know a few people that do stage magic that have had their own versions of the rabbit hole. And they share my belief that it's so much more about connection than it is about ooh, and that there's jazz that happens when the audience is allowed to play. And I have some things that I do that for someone that wants to see it from a a sort of magic trick perspective, if that's the way they need to see the performance, that they'll find that. They'll find that kind of thing. But when I interact, and you and I had this experience focusing on a word, and I remember being all around different ideas with that word that were connecting with you.
Okay.
And that that's that's that kind of gray that happens, that I do allow myself to be open during parts of things, and ideas will come up in what we're doing, and connections will happen in what we're doing that aren't clearly defined in the technical presentation, right? This other stuff kind of floats around there. And what's wonderful about that is sometimes that will result in someone saying, "Can I tell you more about this?" And they open up and they share. And I never would have tolerated that before because it's about me,
Well, most
right?
performers have that attitude.
You
Yeah.
just need to say, "Yes, that's my card," and go sit your happy ass down. Right? Don't go sharing personal anything with. And now when I feel that stuff to start to crack open, oh, I love it. I love it.
See, see, your rabbit hole has evolved.
Oh
Evolved
yeah, yeah. No, they
big
get
time.
wider and deeper as you go.
To me, I've been doing this work a long time, but I learn every day. And really, since the podcast has started, I started close to home with people I know, have worked with, supported. I can't say they're best friends, but know them, know their work, their talents, trust who they are, respect who they are. But I've had an opportunity to sit down and have a conversation
Right.
with the people in a way that just reading at the fair together or traveling someplace with them or having the Saturday night dinner that psychic fairs so often do. We get
Mm-hmm.
together and we try to socialize and get to know each other. This is very different. And because I've exposed myself as I've shared them with the public, I've learned more about where I am on my journey. And I can, there's that word, and I can hang up thinking, wow, I have so much more to learn, or I could never do what they do. I don't do charts. I know enough about astrology and numerology because I've absorbed it from experts. Plus,
Sure.
those are foundations of the tarot cards, and that's my tool. I grew up with tarot cards. But even tarot readers, we have our different way of reading, even though we follow the master that we learn from, whether it's the book or a person or combined. Some people have been around. I read with a lady not long ago that she's been reading the cards before she could read a book.
Mm,
I mean, that's amazing to me.
it is.
And she learned by osmosis before she ever started school. I could say the same thing, but with my grandmother, but she was there every day with her family. I wasn't. So there
Right.
would be years when I would be away from my grandmother physically, and we were military, so that sort of stuff wasn't talked about in public very
Right.
much,
Right.
especially at that time frame. So it's how we learn. And I've been so gifted with this podcast. It's a dream come true because I get to learn from the people that I work with and have the privilege of sharing my metaphysical world with, our metaphysical world, and learn things about them. Sometimes not one single personal thing, but I learn about how they do their work
Right.
and where their journey has been. And sometimes what I'm about to ask you is, what is your legacy? What do you want your legacy to be? Or are you at that point in your life where you can't answer that because your life will change?
I'd like to feel like I leave the world a little better than I find it.
Yes.
I'd like to feel that people that I have connected with uh, got something out of that,
The
and
people that you work with, read for,
or
worked
just
with.
have been in my world in whatever
Okay.
way, right? That somehow I have left a molecule of possibility and empowerment for them so that they go do their stuff with a little less fear, a little more boldness,
Oh, I like that.
right? Um, I don't I don't see a statue of me anywhere or anything like that,
Okay.
right?
Not
There
even in the
might
Magic Card of Fame?
there might be a little, plaque hanging on a porta potty somewhere or something like that. But uh
Uh,
no, and I guess the reason for that is that I really see myself as a part of nature. I see myself as part of this universe that through I have understandings of the process of how a soul comes to be incarnated and what might it be when we move beyond this crude matter, and maybe the cycles that happen there. I have what I feel are revelations, but I also know they're just metaphor. There's only one way to fully understand it is to be all the way through all of it. Uh, and so I I recognize that this incarnation is unique, but I'm also still star stuff, and that this version of me will get broken up and dispersed and reconstituted as it probably has been many, many times before.
I
And
don't
so the
doubt for
universe
a
is the
moment.
legacy,
Yeah,
right?
that's a good way to put it. The universe is a legacy within itself. I don't have any doubt that you have done the magical thing when magic was true magic, and we believed in, truly believed in being able to make something out of nothing, so to speak.
And I'm definitely working on it now.
Yeah.
I'm
So
definitely
I
working on it
have
now.
no doubt that that's where you've been. I have no doubt you've been in a cave somewhere. I have no doubt you've lived in castles and advised kings. And I, when I first met you, that was an imagery that I had of you.
Mm,
When I first met you, before I knew what you were
wow.
doing, what you were
And
doing.
I was just some little dork back then.
You've never been a dork, but there was just, I just saw a different, we were talking about second to second to second, and what now? It just visiting with you in that short period of time, I saw you change.
Right.
And I knew that was just a way of me seeing you in the future, so to speak. But
Right.
I didn't
Well,
know
I
how you'd get
appreciate
there.
that. Well, I appreciate the openness that you always had with me. You really lived by that idea of uh, there are no silly questions. Because I
Mm.
know that when I first met you, I still my skeptic needle was still pointed more toward the left at that point. And while I was open and interested with you, there was a part of me that you may have even detected kind of going,
Oh yeah, but that's
yeah,
okay.
because I hadn't
All
I
right.
hadn't made my way past that yet. And you did not take offense. You were open and honest with me, and you were supportive of the aspects that you saw at that point and encouraged me to go deeper. And so
Find a
yours
rabbit
was
hole.
yours was one of the voices that dared me, and that was good. That was good.
Good. Good. Thank you for that. I had no idea. Thank you. I appreciate that. We can, I think the saddest thing for me as a metaphysician is to see a human, a skinwalker, have a spiritual energy and I believe everybody's born with psychic ability. It's just expressed in different
Yeah.
ways and used in different ways. Some of us were supposed to do this work, regardless of how we got there. We were supposed
Mm-hmm.
to. Some knew at a very early age. Kids typically, they have no filter unless their parents or somebody else has said children are meant to be seen and not heard. But and some don't care. Everything they get, they just comes out of their mouth. And if it embarrasses somebody or scares somebody, so be it. But I believe we are all born with an ability. And part of that spirit, part of that psychic ability is self preservation. It's knowing you shouldn't walk down that alley.
Right.
It's knowing that somebody is following you. It's knowing you're going to see your friend in the grocery store tomorrow. It's knowing who's on the phone before the phone rings. To
Sure.
me, that's psychic ability. Other people would say, "Oh, that's just because you're so close to those people." Okay, I'll buy that, but that's still a connection.
Sure.
That's still a connection, and that's
Yeah.
what scientists have been trying to prove in laboratories ever since there were laboratories to be worked in with fancy equipment. And I keep telling research people it doesn't work that way. Well, now they're getting it to work that way in a sense, the way
Sure.
they're testing kids and
Mm-hmm.
which is, and the kids that are coming through here, that's a whole nother talk. But coming into our community, we don't even want to go there right now. But when it comes to people that are already here and functioning, and I will tell you that the older you get, the more people are going to assume your knowledge, which can be a real challenge, because if they don't get an answer that they expected from you, they may doubt you.
Right.
And then you're going to have to prove to them, or give them a direction to go prove to themselves, which is really the better thing to do. But when you were starting, you were of an adult age, and
Right.
you're extremely bright, and you knew where to go, and you knew what books to look for, and you did. And then you had to take the words or not. You
Right.
tested the words. Not
Yeah.
everybody's going to do that.
Yeah. But it's the only way.
It's the only way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless you're lucky enough to be brought up in a family or in a culture that encourages and assumes that everything, that magic is magic.
Right.
And people get confused about our world. Some folks assume that metaphysics is all about one thing, and it's not. It's not.
No.
One of my favorite stories that I share with people about religion is organized religion. Is years and years and years, and I mean years ago, um, a lady by the name of Raven, God bless her, she's not with us anymore. Brilliant, brilliant woman, very an excellent reader, beyond excellent. We were doing a small fair at the opening of a country club in Bastrop, Texas. And Luttrell had put this together because she knew the lady that was managing. Actually, the lady came to her and said, it would be fun to have a couple of sidekicks, and maybe some vendors. And so Luttrell got about 6, 7 of us readers together, and maybe 3 or 4 vendors. I don't even remember. Towards the end of the day, in come these, well, actually, we could see them standing outside. 3 gentlemen, probably all in their 40s, clean cut, all had plaid shirts on, country cut. I mean, look, you could tell their jeans would stand up in the corner by themselves. You get the idea. Very clean cut. And you could tell they're trying to figure out this. Well, it's later in the day, so late that Luttrell would not charge them entry fee. She said, of course not. Come on in. We're going to close in about 30 minutes, da-da-da-da-da. We saw those 3 men go to different corners. Part of their plan, right? And technically there were probably only 3 corners because it was a semi-circle room. But one of them came and sat down at my friend's Raven's table, one table over from me. And the others scattered. Well, I could hear part of their conversation because the lady that was sitting next to me was not there. She was up talking to folks. So I heard
Sure.
their conversation. Very nice, very sweet. And finally, he leaned in and he said, do you believe in Jesus Christ? And she leaned in and she said, no. Oh my. And she giggled and she said, I'm Jewish. And of course, they both just lost it.
Right.
But she said, if you want to talk Bible, I'll talk Bible. She didn't take any offense at all.
Right.
I mean, we're used to that question, except it's usually, do you believe in God? He
Right.
specifically said, Jesus Christ. No. And then they had this prophet talk. He would bounce verse off of her, and she'd bounce right back until he finally just stopped
Yeah.
because she didn't miss a beat. Boom, boom, boom. So many people out there do not realize that a lot of what we do comes from what you mentioned earlier, the ancients and their belief systems.
Right.
And the gods and goddesses suddenly became angels,
Right.
names. And they talk about cherubs and rituals and the rituals of the church and the candles. A lot of people say, no, it didn't. No, it didn't. But
Yep.
if you follow the history, if it's told correctly, even And honestly, even the covens could be just simply a small group of people in the forest, in nature, enjoying Mother Earth. That's it.
Right.
So much of, and this is all part of what I think you've been a part of in your past lives. You know, you've got roots on your feet. I don't know if you realize that or not, but you've got roots on your feet. I don't know if you're an earth sign or not. I don't know when your birthday is, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if you are an earth sign. So you've got so much more to share that you could take time out of the rabbit hole and just share what you already have and then go get more out of the rabbit hole and live with it a while and then teach it, share it. I like the word share. And I know I've talked more than I should towards the end of our conversation, but I had
No,
to
no,
say
no,
those
not at
things.
all. Yeah.
I had to say those things. Let me see what else I can dig up from our old conversation that really doesn't apply right now. You've grown beyond this. Oh, there is a gateway from pessimist to practitioner, which we've covered
All right.
beautifully. So we need to be compassionate with those who have not yet found their gateway. Everyone can throw a ball and everyone can access and use their own power. You brought that up almost immediately in our talk. We must uncover our shadows and be able to see ourselves naked and beautiful in the mirror with no shame.
All right.
That's a powerful statement.
Well, shame is how people manipulate you.
Yeah.
Elaine, you don't do what I say. I'm going to take you over there and I'm going to tell them your secret. You you grab
Yep.
my hand and say, let's go do it together.
Let's
Oh,
see what you look like naked.
yeah.
Okay, you have a book list.
Oh, yeah.
These are some heavy hitters. The Power of Myth by Bill Moyers, and that's right on my. This is what that sucker looks like, people.
Yeah. And
Big.
that's actually a transcript of a series of interviews. So the original is the
Yeah.
video. And it's just remarkable.
Some of
Joseph
this I have to
Campbell
read. Joseph
did a
Campbell.
he did a wonderful job of
Mhm.
dismantling a lot of the prejudice that I had been given about, your supernatural is ridiculous superstition. My supernatural is the truth,
Right.
right? And helping you to appreciate the echoes and the overlaps between all of these different perspectives and sifting it down to the overlaps, which probably is the truth. And it really helped me get away from my perspective that the point of life was to win the argument, right?
There is no
And
winning the argument with
yeah, that
metaphysics. They're
that
just
it's about experience and views and that you can learn from all of these different perspectives, which is why we have all these different perspectives.
one of the things I really love about our community is that I can't think of anybody. Well, let me rephrase that. There are very few people who will say, mine is the only way. I've met
Yeah,
very few in our community. I know people who say, I've worked at this longer, I know more. Please let me share with you what I can, and then go off and do da 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 da.
yeah,
Whatever. Or you get, when you're just learning a subject, you learn the basics, and then
right.
from that teacher you go to another teacher to another. And your books, I can tell, I love. You started with some of the most complicated, really. The Power of Myth by Bill Moyers and Joseph Campbell, heavy book. Everything written by Terry Pratchett, Pratchett, to illuminate your imagination and help you not take things too seriously. I like that.
Yeah,
Stranger in a Strange Land, loved it. Real Magic by Isaac Bonewits. Is that
yeah,
pronounced?
yeah.
Bonewits. Secret Teachings of All Ages, Manly P. Hall. Nothing you're going to read on a weekend.
No.
Jonathan, but worth every effort. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I don't know that one either. By Susanna Clark.
So that's a fun book. It's fiction, but it's confusingly written because she has all of these footnotes that talk about pieces of history that she mentions throughout the book.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
And so the premise is that in England, there was a period of rule several hundred years ago by the Raven King, who came out of Faerie with his army and ruled for a few hundred years before he went back. And I had never heard of the Raven King legend because she made it up. But the way she footnoted it and all of that made me wonder, well, is this a British legend that I missed somehow? Is this some kind of lore that I'm unfamiliar with? And so we're in the 19th century. Magic has been pretty dormant for a while, but it's starting to bubble up again. And there's these two guys that are sort of the premier magicians. And one of them is a very pissy sort of a man that wants it to be, dumb. He wants it all to be contained, and he will control who gets to have access to what magic because you have to be worthy of it. And the other guy is much more open and uses magic to help in the Napoleonic War and, and all this
Oh,
kind of
wow.
thing. So there's this
I'd like to read
bizarre
it.
overlap between history and invented history and just great storytelling. And it reads like a 19th century novel. All of her use of language sounds contemporary with Dickens or
I love
something
it.
like that. And
I'm
so
going to
it's
seek that one
it's
out.
yeah, it's fun. Uh
And then we have all mythologies.
yeah,
That's a lot.
yeah.
And fairy tales,
So I want to
Fairy.
recommend a website which I may or may not put in the notes. It should go in there. It's called God Checker.
No, it's not in here. God, D-O-D, G-O-D.
Yeah, God Checker. And I believe it's .com, but put in God Checker, you'll find it. And what
Okay.
this is a sort of a pithy examination of all of the beings in mythologies. And
Oh, I
so
like
you
that.
can pick like Japanese mythology and get kind of a quirky, quick definition of who the different gods are. And or you can search for gods about a certain thing. It's just this great little database, and it's very irreverent, but lots of fun, and born on actual myth. I mean, they're not taking liberties with it. They're just being quirky in their condensations. But that's a fun one, and it might help you find myths that you want to go dig more into.
Well, I teach my tarot classes from a historical point of view. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go see what I can find.
Yeah, check
And
it
then
out.
we Joseph Silva's, I say it's Silva, some people correct me, but Ultramind ESP System by Ed Bernd Jr. Folks, this one's been around a long time,
Oh yeah,
but it's a very basic book, but it's a very important book. Very. And for people just beginning to get ESP, the word ES or the initials ESP, back in the what, 70s, late
maybe in
60s, early
'60s.
70s,
Yeah,
that was a new trendy word for meditation and opening up your psychic ability, but people were hiding it under ESP.
yeah,
So, but it really is. It's a good book. The Four Agreements: A Practical Guide to Personal Freedom, a Toltec, and you mentioned that a while ago, spelled Toltec, wisdom book by Don Miguel Ruiz and
yeah.
Janet Mills. It's a wonderful book.
Good stuff. I reread it
One of his
periodically.
first. Yeah, I keep it in the living room. I have certain things in the living room that on a particular chest that that's where they stay. And every now and then when I walk by, I may just pull a book and read 4 or 5 pages out of it. Just
Right.
and that's one of them. In fact, when I was traveling a lot, I used to keep the Four Agreements in my suitcase.
Hmm.
It was, yeah. And um, when I what what is your free gift or invitation would you like to offer? You didn't have anything at the point at then. Do you want to offer anything to our audience? You don't have to. Not don't have to.
Yeah, I don't have anything that's I don't have any good tchotchkes at this point.
That's okay. That's fine. It was just an offer to be set out.
Right.
Other than your time, and you've spent a lot of it with me today, with us today. Thank you so much.
Oh, you
Do you
bet.
what would you like to what's one of the last things you would like to share?
Well, so a quote that has become very close to my heart and is the big quote by Aleister Crowley. Do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. And
You
I really,
know, I would not have expected him to say that.
well, and people have created a more nefarious undertone to the words, but I think you can take the words exactly as they are. And I think that
I
everything
agree.
has to be done through love, but we
Mhm.
have to, that doing things under will, I mean that's bringing your brain.
True. Now that you say it that way, somehow that does fit the personality I believe of him.
Yeah.
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 He
Well,
was
and it's
brilliant.
interesting with Crowley
Folks,
in
he was
general.
brilliant.
He was brilliant.
Mhm,
He was a
mhm.
flawed individual, as many brilliant
Uh,
people are. And if you look at his early work, it's all arcane and you got to earn this. And then you look toward the end of his life and he starts just saying, everyone should be doing this. Everyone should be accessing this. This is the way we're supposed to be. And he tries to make it accessible, but his core tenet was just really, you got to dream your dream, you got to walk your path, you got to live your life for your means, not be a supporting character in someone else's story.
I think that's important. I like the way you're talking about him. I've always appreciated his brilliance and his understanding of symbology and his artist intention. Um, he created or he oversaw the creation of a beautiful deck of tarot cards. Public, if you want to go
Mm-hmm.
look for them, they're a little dark for a lot of in color for a lot of people's taste, but reading what he wrote about the tarot in general is it has great value. So go look him up. Aleister Crowley, Crowley. Aleister. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is more extended than I expected it to be, and I'm so grateful.
When we get together, we yak.
We yak when we have time. We had time today, and
Yeah.
I appreciate you very, very much. Public, he does have a website. What's the name of your website?
SaulRavencraft.com is where
It's
you'll
Ray
find the most public facing things. But if you want to get more into the woo, it's TexasMojoMan.com.
Mojo man.
Yeah.
And Witch Hatchets? Do you still have that one?
Which Hat Chats has been on a hiatus for a little while because, well, frankly, my colleague's computer blew up and
Okay.
he's he's not been having a great time getting another one. Uh,
Okay.
and
Okay.
so things are on hold until we can get her resituated.
Okay. So ravencraft.com and
Saul,
Texas,
SaulRavencraft.com,
right. And then Mojo, Texas Mojo Man. Here we
TexasMojoMan.com.
go. .com. All right, folks, go find him. He's proven to be a wonderful, interesting man who has a great deal to share.
And make yourself known.
And make yourself known. Absolutely. Good final words. Thank you so much, sweetie. We're going to sign out now, folks.
Thank you for tuning into the Conversations with the Ancients, where we take you on a journey where you'll hear voices of metaphysicians from the past, as well as today's spirit mediums, healers, and others who show you a side of the paranormal you've never seen before. Remember to visit our website at conversationswiththeancients.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on Conversations with the Ancients.